So I've gotten several game overs already in Honkai Star Rail, and I don't want you to either. This game can get pretty hard because each time you increase your equilibrium level, Trailblaze levels 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on and so forth, the game's difficulty increases. And if you aren't careful, you might find yourself unable to clear some of the game's content. So make sure you're prepared with these things that I found that you should and shouldn't be doing before Equilibrium 3 or Trailblaze level 40. The first and most important one is to not spread your resources out too thin, because there's something you need to understand about the early progression of this game. It doesn't take a lot to level up your characters, especially to around the level 40 mark for both your characters and a light cone. However, past level 40, everything starts to ramp up considerably. For example, getting a character to level 50 from level 1 will cost you about 100,000 credits and 880,000 character EXP. However, going from level 50 to 60 is going to cost you almost exactly the same. But more specifically, it's going to cost you 822,000 character XP and 162,000 credits, plus a bunch of extra ascension materials to go along with that. Now, this might not seem like a lot, especially in terms of the credits department, and especially if you're like me, sitting with over 2 million credits in the bank, even after hitting Equilibrium 3, let me tell you that it's going to start getting even more expensive later down the road. I have two other characters around level 60, my main character and Sela, and I have several other characters at around level 40 and level 50. However, I still have a lot of resources because I decided not to focus too much on traces on my other characters besides Sela. I only decided to level up traces that were essential skills or for utility. For example, if we take March, her essential utility skills are the one that increases the duration of her shield and also the one that removes a debuff whenever she puts her shield on an ally. And for Natasha, likewise, it's the one that removes a debuff whenever she uses her healing skill on an ally. Otherwise, I did not level up most of her other traces like her basic attack and her talent. Likewise with March, her basic attack is still level 1 and her ultimate is still only level 3. Now, once you've completed all of the quests and claimed your first time clear rewards for a lot of the content in the game, your source of free resources is seriously going to dry up, especially when it comes to credits, character XP, and Lightcone XP. Once those sources dry up, you'll have to rely on in-game events and your Trailblaze power to get more resources. There's just simply not enough resources to level up every single one of your characters, especially after pulling on the beginner warp and if you got lucky with getting a bunch of different 4 stars. And as I just mentioned, if you fly through the quests, you'll also be leveling up your Trailblaze level pretty fast. This means your equilibrium level will also be climbing just as fast. And this means that if you spread out your resources too thin, the higher equilibrium level is going to get pretty difficult. However, on the other hand, getting to a higher equilibrium level is good because you get better rewards out of using your Trailblaze power. You just need to be able to handle the difficulty. And so to save on as much resources as possible, I would recommend picking 4, maybe 5 characters to level up in order to cover some type weaknesses for different boss matchups. The free characters that you get work amazingly well. The Trailblazer, March 7th, Don Hung, Asta, Serval, and Natasha are all guaranteed free characters and they're all super solid. For me personally, I wanted to play through the story with canonical characters, so I focused on the Trailblazer, March 7th, and Don Hung. This doesn't mean that you have to choose those characters to level up, just choose the characters that you enjoy playing. Then you should have also gotten a 5-star character from the beginner warp banner. Level that character up, unless unfortunately you got Himiko, who's still great, just in other places, and that 5-star character is definitely going to carry you through a lot of content. Even without a 5-star character, you can still clear all of the content in the game with some proper strategy and planning. I also recommend leveling up your characters just shy of the level cap. For example, if the level cap is 40, bringing them up to level 39 is good enough because you'll be getting XP by killing all of the enemies on the map while playing through the main story. This is going to save you a little bit of experience and a little bit of Trailblaze power. Level also makes a huge difference in dealing damage because the main part of dealing damage is the difference in level between you and the enemy, but we're not going to get into too much detail about that. Rule number 1 when it comes to your Trailblaze power is to not let it overcap, because if you let it overcap, it won't regenerate and you won't be getting any resources out of all of that lost Trailblaze power. If you're in a really tight spot and you can't even auto battle for 10 points of your power, spend 40 to turn it into an immersifier to be used in the simulated universe. It's better than nothing. Just note that this immersifier does cap out at 8. I have seen a couple of questions about this. If you don't know how to turn your Trailblaze power into to emulsifiers, you simply go into your interastral guide, and in the top right corner, under the survival index, you can go ahead and create some emulsifiers. This function is going to unlock once you hit World 3 in the simulated universe. Next is deciding how to use your Trailblaze Power. Between Equilibrium 0 and Equilibrium 1, you should be farming Lightcone and character EXP because this is pretty much all that you have unlocked. And in terms of credits, you're going to be getting plenty from playing through the quests, and leveling things up doesn't cost that many credits yet. So there's no reason to farm credits at this point in the game. The rate at which you get credits is also pretty low in the lower Equilibrium levels. If you're Equilibrium 2, you want to focus on trace materials and ascension materials. When it comes to ascension materials, don't overfarm them. Get just enough to get to the next ascension once you hit the next Equilibrium. This is because you're capped at pretty much getting 2 drops from the boss at this Equilibrium level. However, at Equilibrium 3, the chance to get 3 increases. So the efficiency is just better. At this point in the game, you should be getting plenty of free character and Lightcone EXP. So unless you absolutely need some more, there isn't really a reason to farm these resources. Really focus on those trace materials and those ascension materials to get your core team stronger. At Equilibrium 2, you start getting 30 of the blue and green character EXP materials, as well as 18 green and 18 blue of the Lightcone EXP materials. Your level cap also becomes level 50, and you also start gaining a bit more Trailblaze EXP for every daily quest that you complete. You get about 260 for each that you do. And with all of that said, don't rush to Equilibrium 3, especially if you don't have the materials stocked up to ascend your main damage carry right away. The monsters get pretty tough, and although you can probably clear it with some good strategy and skill, it's going to take up a lot of your precious time because your damage output is just going to be too low. But like I said earlier, Equilibrium 3 is going to give you a better return on your Trailblaze Power. The chance to get 3 ascension materials from a boss increases. The character XP becomes 6 of the purple, 18 of the blue, and 13 of the green. Lightcone becomes 6 purples, 6 blues, and 16 greens. You also get the option to craft relics, and you also start gaining more Trailblaze EXP, going from 290 versus 260 from before. The next tip I have is to level up the correct Lightcones. You can totally level up 3-star Lightcones. However, you should only do so up to a certain point. This is because we don't want to be wasting our resources, and the difference in stats between a 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star Lightcone are pretty big. This means that if you are going to level up a 3-star Lightcone, only level it up to the point where it requires you to use a trace material. This happens at around level 30 after you have ascended it once. So don't go past this point because these trace materials are better used for other things. And the value of 3 stars are quickly going to fade in favor of 4 stars. You'll get plenty of 4 stars as you play through the main quest of the game that you can easily replace your 3 stars with. Now, this also somewhat applies to 4-star Lightcones. You want to make sure that you aren't leveling up every single Lightcone, because just like with character XP, the amount of Lightcone EXP that you get for free is going to be pretty limited. And as you level up your Lightcones even further, the amount of XP required is going to take even more. The mistake that I made was leveling up a 4-star Lightcone all the way up to level 60. I can still use it for other hunt characters. However, just having one hunt Lightcone to use for all of them is going to be enough because I'm never going to be having 2 hunt characters on a single team. And so the Lightcone that I should have leveled up instead was the 5-star Lightcone that I got from Herda's store. Because not only does this have a better effect, but it also has better stats. And so with that said, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't level up the Swordplay Lightcone. What I'm trying to say is make sure to plan out which Lightcone you want to level for each path in the game. Because very rarely will you ever use 2 of the same paths on the same team. I say rarely, but that's not always the case because a lot of times I actually do use 2 preservation characters on the same team. One of my main teams is the Fire Trailblazer and March 7th. So I actually do need 2 preservation Lightcones. However, when it comes to like destruction or hunt, just choosing 1 should be enough. And so this leads me to Herda's store. After getting your first time clearance rewards for clearing all of the worlds in the simulated universe, the material required to redeem rewards here falls off significantly. After clearing each world for the first time once, you will gain 2 Herda bonds per clear. And so with 6 worlds, this means you'll have 12 of those materials. What this means is that you can grab 1 of the Lightcones in the store and a couple of superimposers. The only way to get more Hertibons is to complete the simulated universe every week. However, even then, we're only getting one per week. This means it's going to take quite some time to get all of the Lightcones in the store. So it's going to be wise to plan out how you want to approach getting the Lightcones in this store. Do you want to grab all of the Lightcones first and then superimpose them? Or do you want to grab one Lightcone and then get all of the superimposers to make that one Lightcone as strong as it can be? It is my recommendation to go for one Lightcone for the path of the character that you're going to be using as your main damage carry, and then go for superimposition to increase the damage output of your main damage carry as much as possible. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for 2 Lightcones, just make sure that you are properly planning which one to go for. And if you just find using multiple characters to be more enjoyable, just absolutely do not use it on a Star Rail pass. This is an absolute trap. You're only going to do this once you've cleared out the entire store, and so that means this is going to be months down the line. The next tip I have for you is to explore the world for as many resources as you can. Revisit areas after you've completed the main quest in that area, because lots of new NPCs start to spawn, new collectibles appear, and quests, both hidden and regular quests, will appear after completing certain story missions. You'll also find some mission items if you have been exploring thoroughly, so find out where to deliver them and get some extra rewards, and also get to know the world better. These, in my opinion, are really fun, and it gets me totally immersed within the world of Honkai Star Rail. Also, make sure you do the difficult fights, the formidable foe challenges. There are tons of good rewards that you get from it, so you should definitely try to clear them as you see them. If you're having trouble with this content, make sure to use your consumables, and make sure to use multiple techniques if your characters allow for it. For example, if your character has an enhancement technique, you can use your enhancement techniques and then use another technique that actually goes for the attack on the enemy. This allows you to stack those techniques and come into the battle fully prepared. And then also turn on the action value display. This is going to be incredibly helpful for predicting the turns and dictate the flow of the fight, and also helps you to better understand turn order. The next tip is do not farm relics in the early game, especially if you are Equilibrium 2 or lower. The ability to farm relics is unlocked during the main quest, at some point during the Belobog storyline. I deliberately left this out of the section when I told you what to farm depending on your equilibrium level, because if you are at equilibrium 2 or lower, I actually don't even know if you can farm relics, but the highest rarity that you can get is only a 4-star. You really want those 5-star relic drops because the difference in stats is so large. This by far is one of the most agreed upon tips. This is because those 4-star relics are going to be replaced once you get later into the game. This doesn't mean, though, that you shouldn't be leveling up your 4-star relics that you're getting while playing through the main story. You definitely should to get that extra power jump. I would, however, recommend that you only level them up to +9. This will help save on resources. And the power difference between a +9 and a +12 just is not worth the extra resources needed in order to get there. In order to get a 4-star up to +9, it's going to take about 13,000 EXP, or about 25 of the cosmic fragments. And once you start to enter into the later parts of the game and start farming 5-star relics, you can fuse these 4 stars into those 5 stars and get a percentage XP back that you fused into that 4-star. For example, if you fused a +9 4-star, you would get 11,400 XP, which is 88% XP back. If you happen to level up a 3-star to +9, it gives you 7,540 XP versus the 8,800 required to get it up there, which is an 86% return on XP. But this is definitely worth it because it's going to help you clear the content. So go ahead and level up your 4-star relics if you need that power bump. You should, however, be selective about which relics you want to upgrade. In the early game, you don't really want to focus on crit because it requires a lot of stats to take advantage of it. Crit requires crit rate and crit damage, as well as a good attack stat and some damage bonus depending on whatever element you are, to really take advantage of high damage numbers with this stat. So instead, in the early game, investing into break effect percent is pretty strong because it's only one stat that's needed, and you get a ton of damage when you weakness break an enemy, and the higher break effect percent is, the higher that damage is as well. So what this means is that if you are below equilibrium 3, don't focus on farming any relics. You can start to focus on this once you've reached equilibrium 3 because it gives you that chance to get a 5-star relic from the Cavern of Corrosion domains. The next tip that I have for you is to follow the operation briefing. This gives you a nice guide to your progression, letting you know that, oh, this is is about the time when you should start leveling up your light cone, when you should start ascending your characters, when you should start trying to clear the Forgotten Hall, when you should start leveling up a relic or two. It's a really nice way to make sure that you are progressing smoothly through the game. The rewards are also pretty dang nice. And so if you guys want to see a more in-depth look at relics, then take a look at this video.